You're listening to the Church of Honky Tonk, where the invitation to worship is, would you like to dance? And every dance is a prayer.
We're your hosts, Sharon and Diana, and today we are going to be talking about leading and following. Tell us, Diana, a little bit about what these two roles are. What does it mean to lead or to follow in a social dance setting?
So the way that I perceive this is a lead interprets the music and gives directional signals to the person that is following. And the follower's job is to receive, or sometimes you can even intuit, the lead's direction and interpretation of the music. Both dancers are in control of their own space, but the lead is the one that's giving these sometimes subtle or sometimes very obvious signals to move to the side, move front and back, move in a circle, basic directions that you would see on a social dance floor. And with those very simple directional moves, you can create a world of dance moves. It doesn't matter also how skilled you are on the social dance floor. The most basic of steps and the most basic of directions with the great connection with your partner create a beautiful movement of art with other people. I'm wondering, Sharon, if you can expound a little bit about the language of dance and how people talk about leading and following or just dance in general in the larger dance world, dance as art.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that your sort of summary of leading and following focuses more on connection than on, say, specific outcomes of certain moves, because that's really the joy of it. It's, you know, like you say, in the dance world at large, dance is often talked about as a language. And social dancing, partner dancing, is the most conversational of all of the dance styles. It is you and another person having this exchange of ideas non-verbally. And a really great dance with somebody is like an awesome conversation. You can tell jokes, you can surprise each other, you can have a deep emotional experience without words. And, you know, that good connection can really lead to some very beautiful moments with somebody, even with the most simple ideas. In terms of like the language aspect, like dance is a language, I really like this. I don't even think it's a metaphor. I think it's just true. You know, sign language is a language. You're communicating ideas very clearly through sign language, non-verbally. I'm not saying that dance is sign language, but in a way, you're using your body to communicate ideas, and different dances have different vocabularies, right? There's different movements that you do within like the structure, the grammar of the dance. And one thing I like to point out in like the lead and follow context is like you're having this conversation with another person as the lead or the follow. And a really good conversationalist is going to choose their words very thoughtfully and respectfully with their partner. So if you have two people who share extensive vocabularies, they can really create a dazzling sort of conversation. Yeah. But you don't have to have some kind of huge lexicon of moves to have a really profound dance. Simple ideas can be expressed in a really beautiful way.
Considering that we call this podcast the Church of Honky Tonk, we'll use like two-step as an example. So we have the basic quick, slow, slow, or you could do the reverse, like slow, quick, slow, slow. Any sort of combination would be considered the basic of two-step. We would start there. But then when we talk about other simple ideas in the realm of two-step as a dance, I consider things like turning, dancing side by side, even levels, high, low, and close and open position. We could make a whole dance just out of those basic elements.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, I think, a really common misconception amongst leads, especially people who are first learning to lead, that if they don't have a bunch of fancy spins or moves and are constantly changing up their moves throughout a dance, that the follow is somehow going to get bored. And that is just absolutely not true. Some of the best dancers on the floor do a combination of the things you're talking about. They know a few basic positions to position themselves in the follow. They choose when to do those movements in the phrase of the music in a way that feels like it's expressing something that they're hearing. They're communicating it clearly. And, you know, a handful of moves or positions has a whole world of depth to it. So, you know, maybe you know one outside turn or, you know, one inside turn, and you can get into cuddle like a side-by-side position or sweetheart position. That's enough. That's enough to have a great dance. I would even say a really, really clear and good basic step that you can do forward, backward, and side, like in promenade position, is enough to have a great dance.
And the nice thing is these vocabulary words we've used, like promenade, cuddle, side to side, these aren't just specific to two-step dancing. The vocab spans multiple dances as well. If you've taken a little bit of dance and then you try something new, you generally already have some vocabulary that you can apply to the new dance that you're learning.
There are cognates for sure. Yeah. I think just like learning languages, which I can't personally attest to because I can't speak any languages besides English, but I am told that the more languages you speak, the more quickly you tend to pick up a new language. And that's definitely true in dance. If you've had some experience in another style, you'll probably find some things that have crossover, overlap, or just sort of a direct translation into two-step. Diana, you, of course, both follow and lead. And
just like yourself.
Just like me, yep. And we both started as followers and then learned to lead,
yes.
I believe. So tell me a little bit about your perspective on the difference between leading and following. Like, what is the feeling for you when you're leading? How does that differ from following?
When I'm leading, the gears in my head are turning. I'm listening to the music. I'm thinking how I want to translate this music into movement. I'm paying attention to my surroundings and paying attention to my partner, how close or how far away they are, what foot or like where their weight is. It's a lot of multitasking, but yet you kind of can also get into a flow state. Whereas when I'm following, say it's like a really fast dance or a dance that requires like close connection, then I think following as like my intuition and attuning myself to my partner so that I can pick up any little of a signal that they may give me, but also stay like on top of the beat so that I can be in time with the movement and the music. I also sort of think like following, I kind of like empty my brain out a little bit. I will say though that my leading experience has required a lot of like learning and lessons outside of the social dance floor. I have really committed to spending quite a bit of time in doing lessons, including two-step and other dance forms, so that I could get to a place where I hear the music and I know how to send signals to the follow. It's still pretty basic stuff, though. It's not anything that like wild, not competition level or anything, but leading requires more study than following.
Yeah.
Although not necessarily. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, at least from your experience, I'll say that your time that you've put into it has really paid off. Every time you come back to Chicago, you are a better and better lead. And I have the same experience where leading, I'm now at the point where if I'm taking a lesson, I kind of just want to take it as a lead so I understand the move better. I'm like, I can probably follow it if I understand how to lead it, but I'm not going to figure out how to lead it unless somebody shows me exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And I think some of that is probably from years and years of just learning how to follow in the moment on the dance floor in a lot of cases, a lot of these movements. So that's just sort of like that different parts of the brain you're talking about, the part of the brain that's like a little bit ahead versus the part of the brain that's more responsive. I've trained the responsive side more. And so the one that's more anticipatory of like what's coming next, what's in the music that I'm going to signal, that muscle might need a little more training. But I think there's something I want to say about leading too. And I guess I already said this in one way, but I want to keep beating this conversation metaphor into the ground a little bit longer. And that is that a really good lead is going to feel what's going on with the follow. And if they're thinking about having a good conversation, they're only going to use words and terms that the follow understands.
It's so true.
Yeah. Because if you're just learning think about it, if you're just learning a language and you talk to somebody who is like throwing in like really big words or complicated sentences, like you have no idea what they're talking about. And it's going to just kind of break the communication. And the whole point of this whole thing is having a good conversation on the dance floor. So, a good lead may know more moves than the follow knows, but they're not going to pull out stuff that the person can't keep up with. Now, that said, they could also introduce them to a new movement, a new phrase, something that the follow might be able to learn in context. Or maybe they don't get it the first time, but they're like, oh, wait, say that again, do that again. Maybe get it the second or third time. But I think it's important for leads to understand that, A, you don't have to know a ton of crazy moves to have a great dance. Not at all. And B, if you do know a ton of crazy great moves, use them judiciously.
Yeah. I want to add, when I ask someone to follow, I usually do a quick check-in with them to see what style of dance they're most comfortable dancing. So that relates to like what you said about a good lead, not trying to overextend their vocabulary for a dancer that, may not know that. So I like to check in and ask. But then just like when you were talking about how you can communicate nonverbally, there is this physical sense that you get when either leading or following of that other person. And it's magic. It's like sometimes you can sense, you just sense it, what they're capable of.
Yeah.
You can sense whether it's like a new dancer or a very experienced dancer. It's very surprising when you just sort of ask someone to dance and then it's revealed to you through the dance how good of a dancer this person is.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Yeah, it's one of the joys of it for sure, regardless of whatever level they're at. Oh, one thing I'll say that follows can do to help is when you're in the two-step position of facing each other and looking over your partner's opposite, like right shoulder, is follows keep your eyes open. Some of us have a tendency to close our eyes and feel the dance. But if you keep your eyes open, one thing is if you close your eyes, you're missing a lot of information in the dance itself. But also you can help the lead because sometimes somebody's coming up from behind, the lead can't see it. Sometimes the lead moves backwards and it's totally acceptable to do so as long as they can keep an eye behind themselves a little bit if they're walking backwards. But the follow can help by looking over their shoulder. And I tend to just give my partner's shoulder a little bit of a squeeze if somebody's coming up behind. And I've never had anybody not know what that means. They all seem to oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I better, pump the brakes so that we don't have a collision.
Good looking out. Sometimes, though, the follow can do what's called back leading, where the follow intentionally or unintentionally sort of controls the dance, but from the follow position. And many dancers have strong opinions about back leading. I kind of associate back leading with like a negative point of view. Although, Sharon, you just told me a really cute story about how you and your husband dance in the kitchen. Will you share?
Yeah. I'll preface it by saying I have very strong negative opinions of backleading too, except in this particular situation, which is that it's helpful to know that my husband is not an experienced social dancer. Just through choice of career, his evenings are often occupied with work, so he doesn't get the opportunity to practice nearly as much as I do. But he loves to dance. We do dance together. And sometimes he'll put some tunes on in the kitchen, and I will come in and start goofing around and grab him and backlead him through whole dances. So he doesn't know the follow position. He knows the lead arm, so I step in the follow position, but I'm the one spinning us and dipping and making breaks and doing all kinds of goofy moves, and he loves it so much. He starts laughing uncontrollably. He thinks it's just the greatest thing in the world. So I can't just out of hand poo-poo backleading because it has its time and place. But I'll say on the social dance floor, I tend to avoid it unless, say, a newer lead asks me to kind of help them that way. Then I'm willing to kind of give a little bit more signaling to sort of help them keep on step. You know, I've definitely heard some very experienced dancers say that you can backlead somebody into, like, if they're just learning, say, the basic rhythm and they're getting off, you can be the one to hold it down as the follow and just keep the step so that they can get back in sync. I have taken the philosophy that the lead is the one setting the step, and the best way for them to learn is to make mistakes, for the follow to try to respond, and for the lead to understand where their mistakes are and then try to correct it. But I get that that's, you know, there may be a spectrum of possibilities there. Tell me your thoughts on backleading, Diana.
It can be sort of irksome to a lead if a follow back leads. And maybe that is, as you said, because there is sort of like an expectation that it is the lead that does the guiding of the dance or sets the structure to the dance. I think that sometimes newer follows in two-step sort of unintentionally backlead because they're almost like anticipating that backwards like basic step. So because they're facing backwards, like that momentum with the basic step, quick, slow, can overpower what the lead is actually signaling for the follow to do. Mm-hmm. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, for sure. I know what you're talking about. And I think some of it has to do with experience level. Because once you learn a handful of movements, but there's so many more you don't know and, you know, are still building up kind of the sensitivity. And I would say the ability to listen to what the lead is communicating without jumping to the conclusion of, oh, they want me to do this move, and then just doing it while breaking essentially the connection. So if the connection is really consistent, then the follow can respond at any moment in time to changes. But if there's a bit of a signal and then there's a huge response, there's a break in that connection, then, you know, you have to kind of reconnect to figure out the next thing. I totally agree with, if somebody wants to do something, you don't force them out of it, or you don't like try to push them into the move that you wanted them or had intended them to originally do. The lead can respond to what the follow is doing for a second, follow them, and then, you know, return to leading the next movement. And in fact, this might be a great way to get into the conversation about switching roles between leading and following within the same song, which is the most fun you can have on the dance floor, maybe.
I'm so excited that we are talking about switch dancing because Sharon and I love switch dancing when we dance together. But I think we can also say that we just love switch dancing in general, switching lead, follow in one song. It's for me, it's like an instantaneous friendship when I find someone else who I'm not familiar with their dancing. Maybe I'm just meeting them for the first time. It's like finding an Easter egg. Like, oh, you like to do this too? 'Cause it just gives you so much freedom to play and be silly, which is another one of my key thoughts when I lead. I don't want to be in my head. I just want to play and connect with the person that I'm dancing with. And in order to switch dance, you have to be super connected and on a very similar wavelength as your partner when dancing. So I first started getting into switch dancing because of contra dancing. It's pretty common in more experienced dancers to do this because the moves within a song are repeated very frequently. So when you're contra dancing and it's like this human geometry, you're able to plug yourself in and out of the equation with your partner and move up and down the set in this line of dance. As I've taken more workshops and building this vocabulary, I think it does expose you to more experienced dancers so you can find other people that can switch. Sharon, how do you feel about switch dancing? When do you switch dance? How do you find switch dancers? Why do you switch dance?
Why do I switch? Because it's so much fun. It opens up so much possibility. It's really, like you say, super playful. I have found, and this is just to put some pressure on the non-femme dancers out there. I have found way more women and femmes that can dance both sides of the dance than I have men or male presenting dancers. So that's just to say, put it out there, like learning both sides of the dance makes you a much better dancer, and it also helps you find all the spaces between. If I keep talking about it's both like lead follow as this really binary thing, but if you can start to understand how each movement works as a lead or a follow, you can find all the gradations of how to signal and then how to introduce movements, because we didn't even really get into it. It's such a nuanced thing, but followers can learn where to insert little ad libs, little additions to the dance to take over and add a phrase maybe before they hand it back to the lead. Like there's all these possibilities that you can open up once you know both the lead and the follow roles. So like switch dancing lets you play with that within a single song. I find switch dancers by looking at who's on the dance floor and seeing people who are both leading and following. And then it's really fun to ask them to dance and say, do you want to lead or follow? And then sometimes it's like, well, let's just switch back and forth. In a very practical sense, like when you were talking about switching between different styles of dancing, it can give you a little bit of a break. If it's a long song and you're leading and you're like, okay, give the person a turn. When you reconnect, connect as a follow and be like, it's your turn to lead for a little bit. You know, you can just like give your brain a break and go into that emptying out, like just connecting and responding mode until the person hands it back to you, or until you say, hey, I think I want to lead now, and, you know, playfully like take the lead again.
It's the most magical when you have that nonverbal communication with someone and it it happens on like a phrase change that you switch, that's when you're really like, oh yeah, you feel really good about yourself.
You're like, yeah, I nailed it.
And your abilities. Yeah.
Diana, what advice would you give to somebody, be they leading or following, who wants to get started but feels a little bit intimidated?
I'm such an encouraging person. I would say, like, oh my God, good for you. I'm so excited for you. I have so many things to tell and share with you, and then hope not to scare you off. But some general tips that I would give to people that are looking to dance, who might be a little scared. First of all, find like a community of dancers that's close to you. We've talked in the past about, checking out your local folk dance community, checking out your local bar if there's live music, going to that. Dancing, though, like any sort of creative skill, is a life pursuit. So I find it really exciting because it means that you're like making this really big change in your life. And like anything, it takes time. It takes practice. So just showing up regularly to whatever dance or whatever dance community that you find is going to help you get started in your dance journey. I do remember after like my first contra dance experience of thinking like, wow, I'm not good at this yet, but I know that I can't wait to do it again, and I'm only going to improve the more times that I come to this event. I was enamored. It was love at first dance.
Oh, yeah. It's always encouraging to feel yourself get better at something. A friend of mine just over dinner the other night was talking about being motivated by improvement. And I'll add this, that I think if you want to build your skills at dancing, any type of social dancing, two-step, anything else, the more people you dance with, the more you'll learn, because every partner is different on the dance floor. And, don't tie yourself to just like one friend, or, if you're learning with like a life partner or something like that, feeling like you can only dance with them. I highly encourage folks to get out there and dance with as many different people at every level of dancing that they possibly can.
Yes. Amen. Let's wrap.
Let's do it, Diana.
That's a wrap.
You want to take us out?
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. And remember, it wasn't God who made honky tonk angels, but they do find heaven on the dance floor.